The following program is a podcast1.com production. He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is the Steve Austin Show. Unleashed.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I'm coming to you from the Broken Skull Ranch way out here in South Texas. Hey, this is the last Steve Austin Unleashed show of the year 2016. And because it's my last Unleashed show, we've gotten away from wrestling for quite a few weeks. I'm getting back into wrestling on today's podcast, an hour-and-a-half conversation with a great mind in the business of professional wrestling. My guest today is Eric Embry, a guy who was booking the territory when I started down there in Dallas, Texas in 1989, and Jerry Jarrett had just bought the promotion from Fritz Von Erich. I'll tell the story at the beginning of my conversation with Eric, how this conversation came to be, but I think you're really going to enjoy a trip back in time and talk about getting over, staying over, creating a work style, different matches, telling stories, in the squared circle, drawing money. It's a great conversation that I really enjoyed with Eric Embry, and it was good to catch up with him after so many years. The conversation's about an hour and a half, so I'm going to step right into my business. Before we get into the body of this podcast with Eric Embry, let me ask you something. Have you ever been at work or maybe at the gym or out with family and friends and you start to worry that maybe you didn't lock your front door before you left or maybe didn't close all the windows? Are you worried that you left your house wide open to any thief who wanted to come in and steal your stuff? If you've ever asked yourself any of those questions, then you need Simply Safe Home Security. And I can't think of a better way to spend your holiday cash than to buy yourself a little peace of mind. And right now, Simply Safe has extended their biggest holiday sale ever. You can still get $200 off Simply Safe's special holiday security package. This award-winning alarm system has everything you need to protect your home. It's got an arsenal of 17 security sensors to secure each door and window. There's a panic button, a blaring extra siren, and a wireless connection to authorities and police dispatch so your family, your home, and everything in it stays safe around the clock. This system is usually $600, but right now you can get it for just $400 when you go to simplysafeaustin.com. This is the biggest deal Simply Safe has ever offered. Plus, there's no long-term contract, no installation costs, and no hidden fees. It only takes a minute to sign up. Go to simplysafeaustin.com. That's simplysafeaustin.com. That's SIMPLI safeaustin.com.
Steve Austin, Unleashed.
All right, it's just sound check with Eric Embry. Sounds good over here. There's probably a little bit of an echo because I'm sitting up next to a wall in a makeshift desk here in the bedroom over here at the Broken Skull Ranch way out in the middle of nowhere in South Texas. Eric Embry is my guest. God dang. I hadn't talked to Eric Embry in a long time, and the other day he sent me a text message, Merry Christmas, Steve, and I sent him another text message back, Merry Christmas, and I called him, because it's been a long time since we've talked. Eric, how are you, man?
Hey, doing good, Steve, doing good, for an old Kentucky boy.
God dang, you know what, it's been so long since we talked, and we connected a couple of years ago, and I was out here at the Broken Skull Ranch again. It was, I don't know, what was it, 5, 6, 7 years ago we had a conversation?
Yeah, I can remember it, actually. It was a few years ago, and I was driving down the road and almost wrecked when I answered my phone. I said, oh, it's old Steve.
Man,
yes, sir, buddy.
I was trying to do a little bit of research just so I could kind of brush up, and because in your career, you travel so many places. And when I first started in Dallas, Texas, in the back end of 1989, I was a student at Chris Adams Wrestling School. And I guess at the time, you'd come in there and started booking, and you were working on top. And as a heel, you were either white hot, or if you were a baby face, you had those people behind you. And just looking at your body of work, I just really appreciated your style in the ring. But before we start talking about wrestling, let's just kind of catch up on a personal level, because I talked to you a while back, and I didn't know that, in 1992, I guess you had a devastating car wreck, which took you out of the business of pro wrestling. And so what are you doing now? And you're back in your home state of Kentucky, so what do you do for a living now?
Well, Steve, I made the circle of life, so to speak, and I did have the car wreck in '92, was hit by a semi, and I kind of look at it, it did take my career away. I could maybe have come back and worked again after a couple of years of rehab and this and that, but to me, it was time to go, and I think that car wreck maybe saved my life, so to speak. It was just time to go and to get things straight. And I had just went through a divorce, like we all familiar with in the wrestling business. And I did a little electrical construction. I was actually an electrician before I started wrestling. And then I stumbled into a job with Dish Network, company, High Power Technical Services in Louisville, Kentucky. We had started out doing all of Dish's work, and long story short, 14 years later, great relationship with them, and I have a satellite installation and service business where if anyone calls Dish Network in this area for anything, I get the work order, and I go or send one of my guys to go.
So what happened on the day or night that you had that wreck in 1992? Was it wrestling related or what?
Well, no, not really. I had a show I was going to that night, little independent shows I was working up here in Kentucky. But that morning I was going across the river into Indiana, and long story short, a semi came jackknife down a hill where it had been raining, and I actually pulled over to the guardrail, braced myself, and said, "Please, God, don't let it be too bad." And it knocked me into the back seat, and I crawled out the back door, and the semi driver said, I've called the police. And I said, well, you better call an ambulance if you get out of that truck. And he wouldn't get out of the truck. But my knees went through the dash and tore up one of my knees pretty bad. And, it was what it was. And I could have come back to wrestling probably a year and a half later. But it was just time to go. The business had changed so much, and so much going on with McMahon in New York, and it was just, I'd always promised myself, Steve, that I wouldn't continue working to a time that it would be embarrassing, like so many old-timers had did back then, that financially they had to keep working. And I always promised myself, no matter what, I would not do that. So it was time to go, and I went.
Yeah, but you said that wreck might have saved your life, as devastating as it was. Were you referring to the fact that you were living fast on the road?
Oh, brother, you got the answer. I think we all were back in the day. Had a lot of demons. I just went through a divorce, and my head was not on, and living the rock star life on the road in the wrestling business. I can hold my own with the best of them, and unfortunately, a lot of those buddies are not with us anymore.
I know, and I tell people too. I was living pretty fast. I kind of hung out with the drinking crowd, but I dabbled in other things as well. And I always tell people, man, I was living the life of a pro athlete, a truck driver, and a rock star. Because, once we got out of the ring after a bust-ass match, acting like a professional athlete, there was a party scene. And there was a lot of that party scene. And you get caught up in it. I mean, I didn't get caught up in it and just and mangled like a lot of guys did, or, lose my life. But there's a couple times I thought I got pretty lucky.
Oh, yes, we all did that are still here today. The Congress did that steroid investigation into the wrestling business and so forth, and man, how I laughed at that. It wasn't the steroids that was causing the wrestlers to die young. It was the lifestyle, cut and dry. Might get a lot of heat for saying that, but I'm not in the wrestling business. I don't have to play politics and keep anybody happy. I'm just shooting straight with you and giving you my opinion. It was the lifestyle is the reason a lot of our buddies are gone.
Well, it was a lifestyle, and and I stepped away when I did, and I had a lot of neck issues. I still had some neurological issues after I had my neck surgery, but I was also still living pretty fast, and that was my own choice. And I think just my neck being the thing, but also running pretty hard also kind of sped up the cause, as it were. But when you say the business was changing in '92. How do you mean? Because I didn't really see the business changing that much from the heydays when world-class championship wrestling was hot. When Jarrett took over and turned it into USWA, you were booking there for give or take 3 or 4 years. How do you mean you thought the wrestling business was changing in '92? Because I thought maybe, it kind of kept pretty, well, we turned the volume up pretty high in the Attitude Era, as they call it in WWE. But then it kind of changed to me. I thought when I got out, but what changes did you see? Because you're a guy, you're born in '59, you got into the business in about '77, right?
Yeah, '76. Yeah, between my junior and senior year of high school. Sure did.
And what changes did you see in the business at '92 that you didn't like?
Well, the big changes that were happening, I'd been in there a long time, and Vince, the WWE, was, the territories were shutting down. Back then, before then, there was probably 20 different offices in the United States you could go to and make a good living. Not just a living, you can make a good living. And slowly, these offices were shutting down where Vince was taking over. Everybody laughed at him when he come out with his game plan. And there was just, you would run your course in Memphis, and time to go, you pick up the phone, you'd call Florida, you'd call Oregon, Kansas City. There was always a place you could go, start over again, run your course there, pick up the phone. There was just there were so many places to work. And then in '92, those places were a lot of them were gone, and the others were on the downhill slide. They were going. They wouldn't admit it, but they were going.
Dude, what made you decide to get into the business of pro wrestling? I fell in love with it when I was 7 or 8 years old, watching Houston wrestling, Paul Bosch promotion. What was it for you that made you say, "Hey, this is what I want to do"?
I can't remember wanting to do anything else growing up. My grandmother was the type of person, probably like some of your people, that when wrestling come on Saturday afternoon, if her house was on fire, you did not bother that woman until wrestling went off. And so, I started picking it up with her, and I cannot remember ever wanting to do anything else. And I came from a very small town, Cloverport, Kentucky, 1,000 people max, and that's counting dogs and cats probably. And no one had ever come out of this area and made it big, so to speak. Butch Beard, the basketball hero, was from around here. But I knew that that's what I was cut out to do. That's what I was going to do. And guess what, buddy? I did it. And I did it.
Man, I read that you were trained by Lou Thesz.
Lou, God love him. I'd met Lou one night in Georgetown, Kentucky. It would have been back 77, 78. And as I was coming into the arena, out back where we parked, there was a lady sitting in the car. And I spoke, and we had just, a little conversation. I had no idea she was Lou's wife, Charlie. And I said, well, man, come on, let me take you in the back door here and get you a good seat and stuff. And she said, no, my hair is not fixed good enough to be seen by the fans because I'm Lou's wife. Anyway, Charlie took a liking to me, and poor old grumpy Lou had no choice but to like me. And Lou opened a lot of doors for me, helped me tremendously throughout the years in the business. And a lot of people have asked me, did Lou teach me how to shoot? Lou taught me a few moves here and there. He was a hooker. And, he took you down, he would break it as he took you down if it was a real shoot. And fortunately, I never got tested and tried very much through the years. But, there was that occasion here and there, but not a whole lot.
I always heard the stories about Luthez shooting, hooking. If he wanted to have his way with you, most likely he would. Was that the case? I mean, his career lasted so long. Was he well liked? Obviously, he was well respected or feared.
Yes, I think both. Lou was 100% business, no bullshit, only business, and respected by everybody. But he was just a man's man, and knew our business inside out, and could take care of himself. He could protect that title that was around his waist against anybody in the business or anybody on the street.
What were some of the things that he taught you in the form of shooting or hooking that you might employ if tested by another guy? Because, I mean, I saw you just working pro style, and I want to get to the evolution of your style, but what were some of the trademark things, the one or two tricks that he taught you in defense of yourself?
Well, we're not going to give all these stuff away, but, as you hook and take down, his thing was you could pop out that elbow, and then, your guy's through. It didn't make any difference how big the guy was. And I don't know how to explain it all, Steve, to be honest. Once you learn it, you don't really learn it. It just, like the wrestling business, becomes second nature. If you need it, you go into that mode and take care of yourself. And, Lou would never teach anyone anything that he thought would use it to hurt somebody. He just taught, the few people he did teach, he taught that to protect themselves. And, if you're involved in a big angle, big storyline, you've got some green kid that thinks he's going to take advantage of you and get pushed because he did, you have to be able to take care of yourself.
You're right about that. I broke in the back end of 1989 coming out of Chris Adams Wrestling School. We were there after the television tapings on Saturday mornings. There's about 25 or 30 of us. Our time in the ring was limited. We learned a little bit of chain wrestling.
Yep.
We learned how to take a flat back bump, and we weren't smartened up. So back in 76, does Lou have an actual wrestling camp? Would he just get in the ring with you and work one-on-one? Was there a group of you? When you say Luthez is the man that taught you,
no.
I mean, that's one of the best of all time. So how did you learn?
Right. Well, Lou would show me stuff in the dressing room, in the motel room. We would discuss, go on to the show. I think the only time I've ever been in a ring working out with Lou was in Mexico, where the office had a gym, and a lot of the Mexican, some of the big guys, wanted to work out with Lou, and we went there a few times, 2 or 3 times, not many. But that was kind of a political thing with him in the office, to where some of their top guys, and I'm talking Mil Mascaras, Dos Carlos, Fishman, and Rick Rivera, the Viano brothers that were on top back then in Mexico. Let's say it was more of a political move with Lou in the office, to where their top guys could say that they worked out with Luthez. I don't ever remember Lou having a school or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So how much training did you get before your first match? And did Lou say, "Hey kid, there's a catch to this. It's not really real."
Yeah, no. My first match, brother, I paid a guy. They were having matches in Owensboro, Kentucky. I paid an Edward Strebel. I don't even know his wrestling name. That was a real name that I found out after the court papers. But paid him $850 to train me. And needless to say, he showed me a headlock and a wrist lock and how to reverse it. And that was my training, and I never heard from him again. And my father had a little political pull in Kentucky, and long story short, the governor called the wrestling commissioner, and the wrestling commissioner pulled Don Pruitt, was an old independent promoter around here, pulled his promoting license, and then the guy made contact with me and got me booked for a Larry Bolin in Eastern Kentucky. So my first match, I'm not smart to the business, and I know how to put on a headlock and a wrist lock in Hazard, Kentucky, and wrestled against a Chief War Eagle or something, I think his name was. And we just talked in the dressing room and went out and did 2 out of 3 falls. that was then. Like I say, I didn't know the business was a complete work then.
Okay, so y'all know the first thing I do before I start any podcast is take a couple of Alpha Brain. So thanks to Onnit, the fine folks who make Alpha Brain and who also make emulsified MCT oil. I know you guys are hearing a lot about emulsified MCT oils these days, and for good reason. It's one of the fastest sources for clean fuel for the body and the brain. And it's one of the best ways to power up your performance or kickstart a weight management program, too. And the secret behind emulsified MCT oil is the medium-chain triglycerides. These beneficial fats support a healthy brain and provide a vital source of energy. And, of course, no one is doing emulsified MCT oil like Onnit. It comes in 3 great flavors, coconut, vanilla, and strawberry. And here's the best part. It mixes easily into your morning coffee or afternoon iced tea without using a blender. Stir it in with a spoon, and you're good to go. So there's no mess, no cleanup, and that means Onnit's emulsified MCT oil is a no-brainer. You can also mix it into oatmeal or yogurt. And right now, if you go to Onnit.com/Steve, you can get Onnit's emulsified MCT oil for 12% off. And because it's Onnit, if you don't like it for any reason, you can get all your money back, no questions asked. So you ain't got nothing to lose. Go get yourself some emulsified MCT oil at Onnit.com/Steve and take advantage of the 12% off. That's ONNIT.com/Steve.
Hey everybody, it's Shaq. Have you had a chance to check out the #1 podcast on Podcast One? That's right, the Big Podcast with Shaq. Me and my co-hosts John Kincaid and Rob Jenners, we have a blast. With way more than just sports, we have the biggest guests from entertainment to the NBA. I promise you've never ever heard a show like this. The Big Podcast with Shaq, with the new episode every Monday at podcastone.com.
Hey, how long did it take you to really pick up the business aspect of working in the ring, putting on, a 10 to 15 minute match, just as far as mechanics, and then really employing winning psychology as far as drawing money and getting over?
Wow. That would be years. Like I started in the little independent promotions in Kentucky to where there was absolutely no psychology. I didn't know what psychology was then. None of the guys did, working in this part. And one day I had stumbled across the number from one of the guys for an office in Kansas City. And I called there looking for a job, and Buck Robley, old Buck, got on the phone, and he gave me a starting date. So Kansas City was my first real territory to work. And I learned a lot there because my attitude was, I'm not Superman. I'm not going to live in a gym that everybody knows that's seen me. And I would go to the old timers and say, hey, will you please watch my match and give me advice? And I did that sincerely at places. And if you were sincere back in the day, the old timers would help you. And they knew I was sincere, and a lot of old-timers helped me. And I actually kept that mindset my whole career. I never thought I knew everything. I never thought I was good. I was always seeking advice from everybody.
Man,
so I don't know that I ever mastered the wrestling business. I survived, but I was still learning always.
Yeah, and we always learn. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because like you said, you weren't a gym guy, so you weren't a body guy. You weren't the biggest guy in the world. If they'd have put all the guys in a lineup and said, hey, pick out the superstar here, or the guys are going to get over, I would say that maybe you would get passed over, and I think myself would have got passed over in that WWE lineup. But you knew how to get over. And you did everywhere you worked. And it was after years, and you made your rounds. I always like to ask people who got over what their thoughts were on getting over. So how did you get over, number one, as a heel, what your qualities or your attributes were, and getting over as a babyface, because you did both? And I will chime in after you give me your answer.
Wow. That's a good one. I guess the smart marks today call it the it factor, the IT factor. You either have it or you don't. You can't teach it. And I went to Florida. I think my career started taking off in Florida with Eddie Graham. J.J. Dillon come in after I was there just a few days and took over the book. And J.J. saw something in me. And J.J. started pushing me because I would listen to whoever I was working with. And there is where I think I started picking up the true range psychology on how to draw money. And how do you explain that to someone? I really don't know. You have to be able to feel what the people are feeling that's watching you. And Dory Funk Jr. explained to me one time, that's always stuck with me. It's like when you're out there performing, you're controlling the orchestra. You bring them up, you bring them down, you bring them up. You know, you're making the fans feel what you want them to feel to paint the picture that you're trying to paint as you're telling that story while you're working. And back in the day, the moral of the story was always to make that fan want to buy a ticket next week to see the continuing saga of the soap opera.
And I agree with that. But on a babyface level, what I always noticed about your work was you always had fire. You would always sell. You showed pain. Things hurt, but you always had fire. When god dang, you'd had enough of that heel, cheating, or the odds, you know, they'd outnumber you. The odds were stacked against you, but somehow, some way, you would never stop fighting. And it showed just grit, determination, and fire. On the backside of that, as a heel, you were just a piece of trash. I mean, you would cheat, you know, screw job finishes, feet on the ropes, mean streak, eye pokes, gouges, handful of trunks. And when you got a guy down, groin kicks, low blows, and you had a mean streak. And I tell people that, and like you said, there's the it factor, and there's some things that you can't teach. But it's just those are some of the qualities in either the babyface or the heel aspect that I always harp upon, and I've done it on 100 podcasts. But some people, when you still, you know, down there learning in Florida for WWF or in any school, I believe that you have to have those kind of qualities for success. If nothing hurts you, if you never feel pain, well, it worked for the Road Warriors, okay? But it doesn't work for everybody. So I just thought throughout your days, when you were a heel, I hated you, Eric. When you were a babyface, I was behind you because you were overcoming the odds. But I believed in you and your promos, talking shit as a heel, but backing it up.
You just right. You just covered it. As a babyface, people have to believe that you can kick ass. They have to believe it. But what have you beat in your match if you win? What have you beat if you don't convince those people that heel is the meanest, cheatingest son of a gun on the face of the earth? The heel cannot accomplish that, making those fans in the arena think that they're the meanest, toughest son of a gun on the earth, if the babyface cannot fail in the way to put that over to the people. So, you know, it takes both the heel and the babyface to get to, it takes the babyface to get the heel over, it takes the heel to get the babyface over. And as a babyface, you know, like I said, the people has got to believe that you can whoop their butt. But the way you sell, by making those people there believe that heel is the meanest, cheatingest son of a gun on the face of the earth, and that they would like to get up there and choke them. And then when you make your comeback, you have got to have that fire to where the people say, you know, the people are like, well, here he goes, he's had enough. And they believe in you because they believe that you're going to kick his butt, and then you have to kick his butt.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there a conscious direction or effort on your part to develop the ring style that you developed? Because, and with me thinking about Lou Thesz, and I didn't get a chance to see a whole bunch of Lou Thesz matches, but him with this shoot background, and you worked a light heavyweight division, but also heavyweight division, but to me you always worked a pro style. And it was really kind of a style that was similar to mine. I was trying to be myself. I was trying to almost emulate Ric Flair. When I started, I just, he would wrestle and do all the stuff, and he actually had a little bit of an amateur background. I didn't really find success until I got dropped on my head and turned more into a brawler. So I wouldn't say you were a textbook brawler. I would say you were a cross between the two, which was, a lot of right hands, wrestling, legs up in the corners, running into stuff. Mm-hmm. But you had tremendous psychology. So coming from a Thesz type background, how did you develop the style that you did? Was that just because you've been everywhere? I've got a list of all the territories that you worked for. Was it picking up the things along the way? How did you create the style that you had? Because it was very simple, but it was very effective. And today, everybody gets caught up. They want to do just a hurricane-style match with all these moves that amount to nothing, but a bunch of just tricks and daredevil stuff. And I'm not knocking the business. I'm just saying the way it's sped up. When I go back and I watched 10 to 15 of your matches, this takes me back to this is pro wrestling that I grew up on and that I love this style.
Yes, because the marquee on the building or the advertising or whatever, the sign says wrestling. And the old-timers back in the day would beat that into your head. The sign says wrestling. So you have to incorporate the wrestling moves. But Blood and Guts sells tickets. So you have to incorporate the brawling, the fighting, but always throw in that wrestling move. The business today, you touched on wham, bam, bam, up and down, up and down. I don't understand the business today. I'm glad I'm not in the business today. It's not a wrestling business anymore. The marquee doesn't say wrestling now, Steve. It says entertainment. And the easiest way for me to explain it in my mind is back in the day, back in our time, and really back in my time before you, your paycheck, your payoff was based on the number of tickets that were sold, on how big the gate was that night. Now, the wrestling business, the money is based upon how many television sponsors, merchandising, ticket sales are irrelevant. You can paper a house. You can give away 1,000, 3,000 tickets to make a house look full and not care now because you have the TV sponsorships and all the merchandising, the toys, the T-shirts, the pictures, and so forth. And I think Vince did a great job of cornering that market, but wrestling as we know it is gone. It's non-existent now.
All right, got to say thanks to the sponsor before we go any further. They're the ones that let me do this for you for free twice a week. So thanks to Nature Box. And Nature Box is going to help you get your snacking back on track in the new year. I know you've been surrounded just like me by junk food, cookies and candy and other sweets during the holidays. But now you can snack better with Nature Box. Nature Box makes snacks that actually taste great and are better for you. They're made with high-quality ingredients that don't have any artificial colors, flavors, or sweeteners. And they got something for everyone. They got snacks like cashew crumble, dark chocolate berry trail mix, and baked blue corn tortilla chips. And Nature Box recently improved their service. Now you can order as much as you want, as often as you want, with no minimum purchase required. And you can cancel anytime. So go to naturebox.com and check out their snacks catalog. There's over 100 snacks to choose from, and they're always adding new snacks too. Just choose the ones you like, and they'll deliver them right to your door. And if you ever try a snack that you don't like, Nature Box will replace it for free. And right now, you'll save even more. NatureBox is offering 50% off your first order when you go to naturebox.com/podcast. That's naturebox.com/podcast for 50% off your first order. naturebox.com/podcast. Hey, y'all know how much I appreciate y'all listening to this podcast twice a week, and that's why we've created a new automated email system to make sure you never miss a single episode. Just go to podcast1.com/Steve Austin and sign up. We'll let you know exactly when a new show is out and who the guest is. So sign up now at podcast1.com/Steve Austin. That's podcast1.com/Steve Austin. Back in Tennessee, I guess it was my first or second time in, and I'd been traveling with Dutch Mantell and Chris Champion. I guess they switched. Whatever happened, I started riding with Tom Pritchard, Dr. Tom Pritchard, who taught me a whole lot, just like Dutch did.
Well,
there was a period there. Oh, I know. And there's a match I watched of you and Dr. Tom. Yeah, it was a great match. But there was a time when Tom had a big gash on his forehead, and he just had a big bandage, not a regular Band-Aid, but a big bandage across his forehead. And he was getting color. He was involved in a feud. I can't remember who with, but I mean, he could basically just kind of push and make the blood come out of his head. That's how long that thing was opened up. But back in the day, and you were known for some bloodbaths.
Yeah, I was going to say, back in the day, if you did it good, you could use the same place for 3 or 4 nights in a row and bleed like a pig.
Hey, what was that night? It was in the Sportatorium. I had just started. I can't even believe I was in the ring with you guys, but I believe you were the booker, and it was that deal. We had the cage match, and I can't remember who the heels and who the babies were, but all of us ended up being handcuffed to the cage, and of course we were all bleeding like stuck pigs because we had gigged ourselves. Was that you that booked that match? Do you remember what I'm talking about in the Sportatorium?
Yes, I remember those matches where everybody was handcuffed and you'd get let loose. I can't remember. I think Gary Young and me come up with that, if I'm not mistaken. It's been, 24 years ago or something, 25. But we had a lot of gimmick matches in Dallas because we had a lot to follow there. I got over in Dallas. It was just unreal. And, there was a lot of politics there with the Von Erichs. I guess I could talk for hours. When I actually quit the business. I had finished a super run in Puerto Rico, booking in Puerto Rico, and had gone home to Florida, had some restaurants, seafood restaurants, and I flew back into Puerto Rico for the weekend to make shows for a weekend, and Bruiser Brody was there, and I remember him and Abdullah took me in this little room, and I thought that I was going to be in for a good fight, but Brody got down on his knees and begged me to come to Dallas, and Bruiser always helped me when I was booking Puerto Rico, by coming in and out for big shows and so forth. And he said, "Man, you owe me. You told me you would repay me. I need you in Dallas." Anyway, that's when I come back into the business and come to Dallas with Brody, and Buck Robley was there helping him book. And then, man, the shenanigans started.
How do you mean the shenanigans started? Because what was the politics?
Oh, brother, the politics there was unreal. The Von Erichs were over so well. I mean, they were like Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler in Memphis. The boys were over. I'd been there maybe a month, and I was hating it. There was no direction. It was just Von Erich. I hadn't been there, but I guess it was about a month. It's when Mike Von Erich committed suicide, and I said it's suicide. And then, probably, I guess I lasted a couple of months there, and I just had enough. I loaded my van, and I was heading back to Florida. And I said, no, I have to stop and tell Gary Hart hello, or goodbye, because Gary was a buddy.
Yeah.
And I stopped by Gary's apartment, and he come outside, and I told him, I said, man, I'm leaving. I can't take it anymore. And, we all were starving to death. And, I had businesses at home that was suffering because I was not there. And I'm not making any money here. I'm spending my money from home just to be a wrestler in Dallas. And Gary said, no, you can't leave. And I said, I'm leaving. He said, you don't understand what's happening. And I said, no, brother, I'll see you sometime. And he said, give me 5 minutes. He went in the apartment, come back out, and he got in my van. I said, what are you doing? He said, go to the sportatorium. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, Fritz wants to talk to you. I said, Gary, I'm leaving. He said, please. And I said, all right. So anyway, long story short, went to the sportatorium, and the ball was rolling to replace Brody with Gary Hart. But since I was leaving, they had to make the ball bounce faster to keep me there. So Fritz made Gary's booker, me, Gary's assistant booker, put me on a guarantee, and went downstairs in the sportatorium and fired Brody and Robley. And that's the first chapter of that book. And then Gary and I started booking Dallas. And that went on for a while, and we were struggling because Gary was in the Von Erich mode, and the people were burned out on Von Erich. And then that's when Fritz made a deal with Ken Mantell, who was running Wild West Wrestling as opposition to World Class back then. And the deal was, and I don't think it's ever been disclosed what the deal was, but per Fritz to me, he made a deal with Ken Mantell for Ken to take over World Class, and Ken was responsible for 100% of any losses the company had against 50% of any profits. Well, that's kind of hard to survive on a deal like that. And that went on for a while with Ken paying the bills, and Fritz would not let Ken fire me. That's when Gary left and took Al Perez with him and went going to WCW. And that's another story in itself. The Al Perez was going to shoot on TV with Ric Flair, and they were going to work an angle with Flair and Perez, and would have shot Perez to stardom on that TV. But Al was going to shoot on Flair and take the belt on live TV. Well, Gary had to stooge that to the office, and to where that didn't happen, and they got rid of Perez. He's back in Florida. He's got a good job. I talked to him the other day, doing good though. But he was going to shoot on Flair, take the belt, and he thought that they would have to give him a contract then because he would be the champion and they would want the belt.
I had heard that story. Eric. But here's the thing: when I go back and watch those old Al Perez matches, he was a good-looking guy, good body, good worker. I thought he was going to have more of a run than he did. And obviously he's willing to take a step if he wanted to shoot on Flair, because I heard he's a salty guy. Oh,
yes.
Why do you think his career didn't take off like I thought it would? And what did you see in him?
If he had went in with Gary, like the plans, and stayed to the plans, everybody that was a wrestling fan in the world would know who Al Perez is today.
Right.
But he was going to speed up the process, and Gary had all kinds of ties with WCW back then, and Gary felt that he had to let them know what was going to happen and stop it before it happened. And that put the nail in Perez's coffin. Because, hey, the business is a work, brother. It's a work. 99.9% of them big tough son of a guns back then would not have been in this business if it was not a work.
Okay, got to take a minute here to take care of another great sponsor of the Steve Austin Show, and it's a sponsor that's going to help all y'all get a good night's sleep, Boll & Branch. You need more than just a damn good mattress if you want to sleep like a champion. You need comfortable, soft bedding to ensure you make the most of your comfy mattress. And thanks to Boll & Branch, you can sleep on luxury sheets for a fraction of the cost. Boll & Branch bedding and blankets are made from pure 100% organic cotton, which makes them really, really soft. And you buy everything directly from Boll & Branch, so you're basically paying wholesale prices. I seen the prices of luxury seats. They can set you back about $1,000 in the store, but with Boll & Branch, you can get luxury sheets delivered right to your front door for just a couple $100. And people love these sheets. Boll & Branch has thousands of 5-star reviews. 3 U.S. presidents have slept on Boll & Branch sheets. A global icon and a national treasure sleeps on Boll & Branch sheets. And here's the best part. You can try them for 30 nights, and if you don't love them, you can send them back for a refund. And to get you started, Boll & Branch is giving you $50 off your first set of sheets when you order at bollandbranch.com and use the promo code Steve. That's bollandbranch.com and use the promo code Steve to get $50 off your first set of sheets and free shipping.
Steve Austin Unleashed.
Hey, tell me your thoughts on Gary Hart, because there was a time when I guess the USWA was slowing down. Maybe I'd come back from Tennessee, where I'd started off, and then Rod Price was going to join me as a tag team, but he never came. But before we left, Rod Price and I were tagging up for Gary Hart. We were working over there at the Metroplex Arena. I guess USWA was still running, but I didn't get a chance to spend a whole lot of time with Gary like you did, and I've read his book. And, of course, the times that I was around him, he was just a guy that you really respected, and he was so straight up. I mean, he was a super smart guy. What did you learn from that guy, or what did you think about him? Because the way he would cut a promo, or just the way he would talk about business, he had the ability to make you completely understand without any ifs, ands, or buts what was going on or what was going to happen. And to me, he had a gift for understanding human nature and psychology.
Yes, he did. And I tried to pick that up from him. He tried to teach that to me as a booker. As a booker, you've got the promoters down your throat. You're babysitting grown adults that are living in a rock-style life world. And that's one of the things that I think I did pick up from Gary, was when you set the boys down to go over an angle, don't just go over what you're wanting them to do to make this angle work. You go over with them why you're doing this to make this work. Everything has to be rhyme and reason, and why I want you in this spot to be this person in this angle. The talent, the boys have to understand everything. And Gary was the best I ever been with about explaining his game plan to the talent.
How would you, if Gary was booking and you were assistant booker there for a while, correct?
Yes.
So tell me about
Correct.
your brainstorming sessions. How would you guys, because you were living in the Sportatorium for a while, was this at the time you were living in the Sportatorium, or would that be later?
No, I lived in the Sportatorium for a long time.
But
me and those big rats, the 4-legged rats.
Well, tell me about the brainstorming
And the winos
sessions.
right across the street. I did the winos across the street. I couldn't, all the interstates and the underpasses right across the road from the Sportatorium. Steve, I could not count the times I would go to McDonald's and buy 50 cheeseburgers, hamburgers, and go over there under the underpasses, and they would sing and play guitars and be drunker than skunks and party with the winos, the homeless under the interstate. Unreal.
I've explained the Dallas Sportatorium to people many times as far as my impressions of it. How would you explain the Sportatorium to people listening to my podcast? It was a building where wrestling matches were held, but also old concerts. George Jones played there. Elvis Presley played there, among many, many others. But just from a wrestling venue and a home, how would you describe the Dallas Sportatorium?
The most awesome arena in the whole world. Just the way that old building was set up. If those walls could have talked before they tore it down, oh my gosh. You couldn't have a better atmosphere for wrestling or concerts and so forth. It's just the way the seating was set up. They had no air conditioning. It was hotter than heck during the summertime and colder than heck during the winter. But the people, they just, they knew that when they came there, they were going to be entertained. They were going to get their money's worth for whatever a ticket cost. You know, you could put a yard sale in the Sportatorium and draw people. And I guess that would go back to the way it was before we got there. The people knew that the Sportatorium was the place to go to be entertained. I don't know if you could put it in words on how to explain the Sportatorium to people. It was just awesome. It was so interactive, I guess. The people were so close. You were so close to the action. I think that played a part of it. You know, the bleachers was on a big incline, meaning if you were in the top row, you wasn't that far away from the ring. You were just up high or looking down. It was unreal, unbelievable.
When you walked into the place, one of the things that I liked about it, just the dressing facility was, you know, not very big. There was nothing glamorous about it. But when you walked in that building, it smelled like hot dogs, stale beer, sweat, cigarette smoke. I mean, all of the elements that are conducive to a great night of professional wrestling. Like you said, it was either hotter than hell or cold as hell, depending on what the season was, and the people crammed in there, and everybody had a good seat. They had those little rope banisters around the ring. You know, Gordy just shoved a fan back one time. The guy had a cigarette in his mouth and was talking shit to Gordy. Gordy just shoved him. And the Von Erichs, when they were on fire, probably happened to you as a babyface. They'd go down. They'd damn near get mugged, have about 10 phone numbers in each of their hands by the time they got to the ring or back out. But it was absolutely mayhem in there. It was just, to me, it was one of the best buildings ever.
Oh, yes. And when you left the ring, going back to the dressing room, your trunks would be full of party favors by the time you got back to the dressing room. I mean, unreal interaction. The fan interaction in Dallas was, I've never seen it anywhere close to being duplicated in any place in the world I've been. It had that it factor. That's what it was. It had the it factor.
It broke my heart when they tore that building down.
Oh,
I thought
yes.
they should have left it as a landmark or a museum.
I would have thought so too, brother. I went to a Texas shootout that honors Red Bastien that Johnny Mantell has every year. And they've been trying for years. And 2 or 3 years ago I went, and they took me to the empty lot where the Sportatorium used to be. I took a picture standing where the Sportatorium used to be and just almost cried. It was so unreal that building was gone. Unreal.
I took a picture in front of the Sportatorium. It was about 89 or 90. I had long blonde hair. My roommate from college and his girlfriend had come up there, and I was just now breaking in, and there was a picture of me, you know, young white meat baby face with blonde hair and blue eyes, and that Sportatorium was in the background. And I don't know, I've lost the picture in all the years, but I'll never forget when I would see that picture, and that you know, it just brought back so many memories of one of the greatest buildings that I ever wrestled in. And we talked a little bit about Fritz Von Erich, because Gary Hart got in your van and made you drive back to the Sportatorium. I heard so many stories about Fritz. I came in when Jared had bought the promotion from him and turned it into the USWA. Where you were booking, you and PYQI had the cage match,
right,
tore the banner down. But that's not my question. My question is, what kind of man truly was Fritz to work for, and was he an intimidating force?
Fritz Von Erich was a very intimidating force to some people. I have always been, Steve, and I'm not bragging, but I'm unintimidatable. Fritz was very loud, and, you know, he was a very big man. But by the time I got to Dallas, what I saw in Fritz was a burned-out, broken Fritz Von Erich. Not broke money-wise, just broken. You know, that family has more evil curses than any family I've ever seen, or probably in the history of the world. And Fritz, for some reason, Fritz liked me. I don't know. Carlos Colon told me one time that Fritz had called him about me, wanting to know about me, if he could trust me. And, you know, that back in the day, the old-timey promoters, they all stuck together. And they all communicated constantly. And I think that maybe played a role in it. And Bronco Lubitsch, God bless him, I loved Bronco. And Bronco was Fritz's right-hand man. And I could say stuff to Fritz that other people couldn't say. I could suggest to him, and notice I said suggest. I could not tell him, Fritz, you're wrong. I could suggest to him that, Fritz, you're wrong about this, or you're wrong about that. And a lot of times he would listen. One of the times that he did not listen, that back in when Mantell was had the territory, and they were trying to rehash the Freebirds and the Von Erichs, which had an awesome, you know, they had a great run there. Everybody's heard of that. But they were going to do have a big show coming up at Reunion Arena, their yearly big show, and we're in a booking meeting with me, Michael Hayes, and Kenny Mantell, and Michael has come up with this idea for Fritz to fake a heart attack.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my God, guys, the people were so disgusted with, you know, they had just lied, you know, the Von Erichs lied to the people of Dallas too many times. And, you know, they had Lance Von Erich. They called him a Von Erich. He wasn't a Von Erich. They went on TV. When the people found out and admitted that, Mike had died, and, you know, David had died in Japan, and then Mike, and just so much bad taste, and now they're going to fake a heart attack. I begged Fritz not to do that. I said, Fritz, you're going to put the last nail in the Von Erich coffin. The people are going to say, they're going to discuss. You're going to kill anything that you have a chance of building. And he didn't see that. He said, well, Kenny's paying all the bills. And I think Fritz did that because he had no pressure. Ken was doing, you know, Fritz was burned out, and Ken was paying all the bills, and Fritz's boys had a place to work. And Fritz went for that and did that. Faked the heart attack at Reunion, and brother, business went better than Kelsey's nuts. The people saw through it. They said bullshit. They were chanting bullshit at the arena when they did the angle. And it's probably a blessing for me that he went through it, because as Jerry Jarrett come in, and I was made the head booker, and Gary left because him and Jerry didn't get along from something years ago in Atlanta. And it allowed me to be the first babyface ever to be pushed harder or further than a Von Erich. And the people were ready for something different and new there. And business took back off.
And that's very interesting. You had been assistant booker with Gary Hart, and now when working for Jarrett, was this your first time, you know, head booker, the booker job?
No, I had booked San Antonio with Joe Blanchard, followed Luke Williams, and actually opposition against World Class a few years before. And then I went to Puerto Rico, and after Luke Williams, you know, Luke Williams, one of the sheep herders, doesn't get the credit he deserves in the business. What a mind that guy had for the wrestling business and psychology. He drew money everywhere he went. And when he finished up in San Antonio, I got the book. And then when he finished up in Puerto Rico, I got the book there. But then with Jerry, it just, you know, kind of all fell in place. I was there. I didn't really know Jerry Jarrett. I'd worked his territory a little bit for a few weeks, a few years before that, and just saw no money there for me, and had left. But when Jerry come in, his only rule, if I would take the book, was that I push myself. And it was not my idea to push myself in Dallas. It was that was my understanding with Jerry, is I had to push myself, and I told him no. And he said, no, you have to. He said, Eric, I'm dealing with the Von Erichs. He said, Kevin does not like me. Jerry does. He said, I have to have a top babyface here. My top babyface has to be somebody I can trust. And he said, there's only one person that could be. He said, and that's my booker. I can trust my booker. So it wasn't my idea to push myself in Dallas. I'm glad I did. I had fun and made money. But that was Jerry Jarrett's only rule he gave me, and the only help he gave me booking Dallas. You know, I've seen a lot of stuff on the internet that Jerry Jarrett did this in Dallas, Jerry Jarrett did that in Dallas. Jerry Jarrett didn't do shit in Dallas. I had a complete, and Jerry, his way of thinking was he wanted to concentrate on business, financial part of the company, and the syndication. That's where his big money was going to be. And I ran Dallas. I did all that stuff. Wasn't all my ideas. It was the talent's ideas that was there with me, all the angles and this and that. But Jerry Jarrett did no booking in Dallas whatsoever until after him and I got into it and I left. And then after I left, they lost Channel 11, which was a big thing to keep that office alive. And I think he ended up selling out to Pedicino or something.
But, you know, I was thinking, you know, well, I think a lot of people thought that when you got the book, you pushed yourself to the moon. And like you just said, it was Jerry Jarrett saying, you're my booker. I can trust you. You're not going to leave anywhere. You're not going to leave me high and dry. And that goes back to, you know, old school mentality, just like with Vern in AWA, pushing himself so hard. I mean, he was never going to leave. When Zbyszko came in because of the ties, pushed him. So that was the mentality back then. You always had somebody that wasn't going to hold you up. There was going to be people that could hold you up, but never put yourself in a position that you can be held up or fucked.
Right, because he wasn't sure whether the Von Erichs were going to go through with their deal because Kevin was so against him. He wasn't for sure that they wasn't going to open up an office against him there after he had bought the chunk that he bought. He just wasn't sure what was going to happen, and he trusted Terry, and but he did not trust Kevin, and there wasn't a lot of trust with Fritz there because Fritz was Kevin's daddy, and you had to have to where if the Von Erichs opened up against you, you could still compete. So that's where that came from, and then you know the name change. You know I caught a lot of heat years later for tearing down the world-class banner in that match with T.Y. for, you know, the control of the company. Well, let me tell you where that comes from. You might not even know, Steve. Kevin, I didn't know the details until I did a shoot interview with somebody, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and he told me, and then I checked into it, and it was true. Kevin filed a lawsuit against Jerry Jarrett over something about the name, defrauding the name World Class or this or that. So Jerry received a cease and desist order to stop using the name World Class by such and such a date for Fritz Von Erich and Kevin Atkinson. So Jerry come to me and said, Fritz says we have to stop using the name World Class by whatever date. It was like 6-8 weeks out. And he says, so we've got to come up with a way to change the name. I said, I told you, I said, well, USWA is what you're calling your organization in Memphis, so let's call this USWA. We'll change it to USWA. And he said, we'll come up with an angle. Let's do it on TV, blah, blah, blah. So that's how the name change come about. Fritz forced that name change.
Yeah, I wondered where that came from, and that match was on August 9th, 1989, and I would start training in the back end of 1989 with Chris Adams, and then that's when, you know, Jarrett had adopted the USWA thing, so I'd always wondered the story behind that.
Yes, that was Fritz. It ended up backfiring against the Von Erichs, but that's how that came about. Yes, I can remember one Saturday morning there, you know, we would do the Sports Room on Friday night and film the syndication show, and I would stay up all, depending on how the crowd's response to my angles and the matches were, I'd stay up all Friday night writing TV for Saturday morning, which was a 2-hour that went out on Channel 11 that night. And that's what we drew our house week the next Friday night in Dallas. And I can remember Chris Adams coming to me one Saturday morning saying, hey, you got to look at this guy. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, I got this guy in my school. I want you to look at him. So I did. I went up in the cage, and I watched you for a little while and went to Chris, and I said, you know, there's something there. The kid has got something. And I watched you for a little bit, and I'm not taking any credit, but I often told Chris, I said, that guy's going somewhere. If he sticks with this, he's got the it. And Chris says, I think he does. I said, no, I know he does, Chris. And then it wasn't 3 or 4 weeks that I went to Chris. I said, is he ready? Is he ready? Is it not yet? Not yet. Then I kept on him. Is he ready? Is he ready? And one of the biggest fights Chris Adams and me ever had, arguments, was I think it was your first match to where they didn't let you in the dressing room. You had to dress somewhere outside the hallway or something.
Janitor's closet right by the door.
Yeah, I knew nothing about that till after it was over, and I chewed his ass for that. And because I saw something, I wanted to get you going, and that's when. And because we had the 2 girls there and this and that, and I said, oh my God, Chris, and I said, come up with a program, and then we'll go over it. And Chris came up with a little program, and we sat down, we tweaked it, and man, it took off. You took off. I never dreamed you would go as far as you did, brother, and I absolutely take no credit for that at all. You did all that on your own. But I stayed on him to get you out of that school, because that school was a way for Chris to make money. There was a lot of people that paid him some good money that never had a chance of doing anything. And I wanted you out of that situation, because I saw something there. But you did great. You just unreal how far you went, brother. Unreal.
All right, I'm calling audible and switching topics here for a minute, because I got to say thank you to another fine sponsor of the Steve Austin podcast, who's making it pretty dang comfortable to sit in front of this mic twice a week and open up 2 cans of audio whoop-ass for you. Me Undies. Yeah, I said it, Me Undies. They sent me a damn box load of their camouflage Me Undies, the ones made out of that modal fabric. I know you're thinking, why is Steve talking about modal, and why should I care? Well, modal is 3 times softer than cotton, and I'm trying to smarten y'all up about that. And Me Undies ain't lying. These are about the softest, most comfortable underwear I have ever worn. So now I can sit here down at the Broken Skull Ranch in comfort while I podcast and while I sit in the deer stand. So for the price of about 2 cocktails, you can have Me Undies delivered right to your front door, and you can experience exactly what I'm experiencing. And Me Undies offers free shipping in the U.S. and Canada. And if these ain't the most comfortable, best-fitting underwear you've ever worn, Me Undies will refund your money and let you keep your first pair for free. But I'm telling you, you ain't going to return these. And that's why for a limited time, my listeners also get this great deal. 20% off your first order when you go to MeUndies.com/Steve Austin. Did you get that? MeUndies.com/Steve Austin and get 20% off your first order and free shipping in the U.S. and Canada. One more time for the hearing impaired, MeUndies.com/Steve Austin. I'd played junior college football. I had 2 scholarship offers. I could have gone to North Texas State or University of New Mexico on a full ride, and I had to have a full ride, or it was just summer jobs. And I knew I wasn't going to leave the state of Texas, and I'd drive up to the Sportatorium on Friday nights and Saturday mornings just from Denton, Texas, 30 miles away. And, I'd been watching wrestling forever, so I just knew I wanted to get in. And finally, my buddy who was over drinking beer with me, we was throwing shit at the wrestlers, typical crowd. And I was
that little section over there. That little section over there. I remember that little section.
My buddy would give me the elbow. He goes, God dang. He goes, man, you need to get in this. He goes, you're big enough to do this. And that was kind of all the prodding that I needed. And I saw that school that Chris had advertised on the commercial during, the Friday night show. Yep. Anyway, so I joined up, and it turned out okay. But I was very fortunate to be, with a veteran, because, Chris was a damn good worker, and he was very charismatic. And the angle got over, and it got me immediate, nationwide or worldwide attention, because I was greener than grass. I was really pretty much the shits. He was carrying me to matches. I was trying to do the best I could, but when I look back at some of that stuff, and probably maybe if you saw yourself way back when you started, it takes a while to pick this up. You don't just get in there. Maybe Ricky Steamboat's the only guy that was ever good when he was green. But I look back at some of that stuff and I cringe. But it gave me my start, and I was always thankful for that. Hey, what was the difference, Eric, in booking?
Yes. Chris was a good guy.
He could be. I mean, he was always good to me. I remember one time we were working some shows over there in Louisiana, and I just came into territory. I was working with Chris, on the upper part of the card, and it was 30 days, 90 days in the business. We went over to Louisiana, and Skandar Akbar and Bronco Lubitsch said, "Well, who are you going to ride with, kid?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't really have a travel partner because I haven't been out on the road." And old Ack goes with that deep voice, well, you just fall in with us. You can ride with me and Bronco. God dang it, Eric, that was one of the best educational, 4-day, 5-day trips in the world to ride with Skandar Akbar and Bronco Lubitsch, and they're just telling stories and telling me to save my money, giving me tips, those things that a veteran does when they take you under their wing and help you gain knowledge because they realize how green you are, the mistakes you're making, and it was just a wonderful time. It's like getting a scholarship.
Yes. And see, that's what I was talking about earlier. That's the way the old-timers were. If they liked you, and for them to like you, they had to feel, not see, they had to feel that you were sincere. And if you were sincere, the old-timers would help you. So you, a lot like I did, listened to the old-timers. And not only listened, you did what they said. You tried what they said. And you can't buy that kind of experience. You can't get that kind of an education anywhere. No money would buy that type of education that you can get from those old-timers. And the boys today, they don't have those old-timers anymore. We're all gone. They don't have them. And, the wrestling business is gone anyway. And it's a entertainment business now. And that's a whole nother book.
Hey, Eric, when I was traveling in the Texas area, gorgeous Gary Young took me under his wing. And, Gary was a damn good worker, great psychology. He didn't get a big break, but, I mean, man, that guy was good, real good. And he taught me so much. Riding down the road, that's all we talked about was pro wrestling, and I'd ask him, hey, Gary, when you was working with Matt or Billy Joe Travis or whoever or Dundee, I said, why did you do this when you did it? And he'd tell me, well, kid. And so he'd give me all this psychology. So my question to you is, when you were riding down the road, and let's just say this is when you had the book for Jarrett in Dallas and going back and forth to Tennessee, who would you travel with, and how much pressure did you feel as the booker to get those houses to perform?
Well, the pressure is unreal. As a booker, you're not a popular person. The business, the booker, it's the responsibility of the booker to put asses in the seats. And it's the booker's job to tell this grown adult living in a rock-style world that he has to put this guy over tonight. And which is hard sometimes because, these guys forget it's work. And a lot of times they don't want to do what you need done. In Dallas, I hooked up with Percy Pringle, Paul Bearer, I guess wrestling fans of the day would know him. And Percy drove to all the shows, and I would be on the phone with different talents and working on different angles and going over stuff with Percy. And nobody realized the wrestling mind that Percy had. Percy had a wrestling mind. A lot of his ideals needed to be tweaked a little bit to come into drawing money, or turn them into drawing money. But I most of my time with Percy, and one of my best friends in the business ever, Tony Falk. Tony Falk is another Kentucky boy that I kept with me in every territory I went to, just about, that I could get him. Tony was the type of talent that you could ask him to do anything, and it didn't matter what, he could pull it off and make it work. Kind of like Dusty Rhodes and the polka dots that Vince did as a rib, and Dusty throwed it back in his face and made it work, But in Dallas, Gary Young was a super talent. I went to Jarrett flew me to Memphis for a weekend, and the Monday Night Memphis show, and I saw Gary Young and back then Cactus Jack. And I went to Jared up there. I said, what are you going to do with these guys? He beat them in Memphis. And he said, well, they really run their course. I said, my God, can I have them in Dallas? He said, well, yeah, if you want them. He said, talk to Lawler. And Lawler was like, yeah, when can you take them? And I said, as soon as you can let them go. And I got those guys down there, and I've been working with Iceman and Brickhouse, and which were superb. Iceman really gets a lot of credit for me initially starting to get over as a babyface in Dallas. And Lawler wanted them for Memphis, and they didn't want to go. So I had to, and this is one of the shit jobs as a booker, I had to give those boys their notice in Dallas, and there wasn't a lot of places to go back then. So where did they end up? To feed their families, they ended up in Memphis, where Lawler wanted them. But Cactus and Gary, when I got them into Dallas, they just clicked. I mean, Cactus's career, Mankind, whatever they called him up there, I got him on national TV, and somebody saw him, and deservingly so. He was the weirdest son of a gun. He would want to do spots that would have killed me if I'd been on the receiving end. But he would beg to do these crazy spots on the floor and the bumps on the floor. And, oh, my gosh. I was like, Cactus, no, you're going to get hurt. And I don't want somebody to be working with me when they get paralyzed. And but he kept on, and God love him. I talked to him a couple of years ago, and it was just like me and you, no big head. He was as big as he could get next to Stone Cold, of course. But, you guys didn't let it go to your head like some of the guys did.
You brought up a name when you were talking about Tony Falk a while ago, so I wanted to also just say Tony Falk was so helpful to me because a lot of times, if they needed an extra match on the card, Eric, Tony Falk, he always had a wrestling gear. If he needed a ref, he would referee. He could do it all. I think he's probably setting up the ring too. But he was a damn good worker.
Yes, sir.
He wasn't the greatest physical specimen, but he had great psychology, great timing, and just knew how to work.
Yes, he did. That's why. And he was my friend. That's why I kept him with me. And actually, when I called him last night, I said, Tony, you got to jog my memory a little bit, brother. I said, Steve Austin has called me and asked me to do his podcast, and I have shied away from the wrestling business for 25 years. Help me remember some stuff. So he started laying out my career to me.
Well, he was very instrumental. He gave me a lot of help, and so I really appreciate Tony Falk. All right, before we go any further, I need to say thank you to the sponsors who make it possible for me to open up 2 cans of audio whoop-ass for you free every week. So, thanks to Helix. Everyone on this great green earth is a unique individual. You don't walk like anyone else or talk like anyone else or even sleep like anyone else. So, why is your mattress one size fits all? It doesn't have to be like that anymore. Thanks to Helix. Go to helixsleep.com. Answer a few simple questions, and they'll use their proprietary algorithm to run a 3D biomechanical model of your body to create the most comfortable mattress you've ever slept on. Helix worked with the world's leading sleep scientists to develop this formula so that everyone can get an affordable, customized mattress and enjoy the best sleep of their lives. Helix even customized each side of the mattress for all you couples out there. And here's the best part. You have 100 nights to try it out. And if you don't love your custom mattress, Helix will pick it up for free and give you a full refund, no questions asked. So go to helix.com/podcast and get $50 off your order. That's helixsleep.com/podcast. helixsleep.com/podcast. What was your, you brought up Jay Lawler. What was your relationship like with Lawler? Was there any competition there, or just because he was on the other end? Okay, you're laughing. What's going on here?
You want to shoot, or you want me to sugarcoat it?
It's just straight up podcast, man.
Now, this is just personal opinion, okay? Jerry Lawler is the biggest asshole that ever laced up a pair of wrestling boots, personally, okay? As a talent, Jerry is one of the greatest that ever laced up a pair of wrestling boots. Jerry Lawler and me just could never get along. We could work with each other, have damn good stiff matches. You know, he'd always sneak in that potato and bust my nose or my lip or something and say, "Oh, sorry," and then kind of snicker, and then I'd have to whack him back. But Jerry, and this again is just my opinion because a lot of fans today love him, Jerry jumps in his britches with both legs at the same time. One of the greatest talents ever, but his and my personalities didn't mix. Like when I went to book Memphis, my understanding with him and Jerry Jarrett was I did not work for Jerry Lawler, or I would not go. And, Jerry Lawler owned 40% of that territory. I don't think a lot of people know. Yeah, I know a lot of inside secrets, Steve, that I don't care to let out now because I'm not in the wrestling business. But back in the day when Jerry Jarrett split from Nick Gulas, who had that territory, Jerry Lawler was the hottest thing in this area and had been. He was like a Von Erich in Dallas. And whoever Lawler went with was going to win the promotion battle. If Lawler stayed with Gulas, Jarrett wouldn't have made it. Lawler come with Jarrett, so Jarrett gave him 40% of Memphis to come with him. And a lot of people think Lawler's heart attack was fake on New York TV here a few years ago. Well, here's my response to it. It was real, and I sent Lawler an email that said, "Ha ha, you tried to go out on live TV with a bang, but you didn't pull it off." He sent me an email back with nasty little comments, and it wasn't but a few months later, Steve, karma is karma. I had a heart attack, had quadruple bypass.
I agree with your statement that Lawler's one of the best wrestlers that ever got in the ring. He was a great storyteller. He could speak for the other person if need be. He was kind of like Lance Russell in that regard, who was such a great announcer.
Yeah.
He could take a deaf mute out there, ask him questions, answer the questions, and get them over. But Lawler had the ability to speak. He had a great charisma about him, and he was a tremendous worker. Now, on the personal side of him, I was one of the boys. He was a generation and a half ahead of me, so I couldn't speak to the personal level that you speak of. But was it just a personality clash because it was two alpha guys?
It could have been. It was kind of a business clash because I understood what needed to be done to draw money, and personality never interfered with my thinking to draw money. I could dance with the devil if it was going to draw a house. And in my opinion, Lawler let personal interfere with that. He was financially sound. He saved his money. He'd never partied, and saved his money. So, like an example, when I went to book Memphis with that understanding, Memphis was dead. I mean, they were losing money. And I went in on a deal with, I'll just tell you my deal. I had a minimum weekly guarantee plus 25% of the profit weekly out of the territory, which is a very good deal for me. And we started to get some heat. And Tom Pritchard and we started to get some heat, and then we were going to switch the world title that Lawler had to me on TV Saturday morning, which went out live, and got there that Saturday morning. That was the next step we needed to getting me over to draw money. And that morning, Lawler decided he didn't want to do it. He didn't trust me anymore because Coco Ware had told him that I told him that I wouldn't put Lawler over. Lawler would never have a film of him beating me. Never would have it on film. And so Lawler was afraid to switch the title to me because he didn't think I would drop it back to him. And that put the nails in the coffin in Memphis because there was no way. I guess there might have been a different way to accomplish and draw money, but I didn't have the trust that a booker needed, and that pretty much gave the book back to Jerry Jarrett, and then Lawler took over, and I went home. And had to have working those little independent shows, and had the wreck, and wrestling was over. But it was definitely a personality conflict. I just didn't understand the way he thought. And per Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler felt as I was a threat to him for whatever reason. You know, the more money he made, it would have been more money than I would have made, and I would, we both should have been happy, but it ended up the way it did.
You know, Eric, when I was sitting there adding up the numbers, if you started in 76, 77, and you got out in, what, give or take 92, that was about a 15-year run?
Somewhere along in there,
Just,
yeah.
Give or take, and that's the
92,
ballpark.
October 30th, 1990. Yeah.
But so then when you retired...
Yeah, it'd be long in there.
Okay, a little bit longer than that. So if you're born in 59, you got out in 92, you were 33 years old when you got out of the business. Is that correct?
Yeah, that song, I was on the back side of 30.
John Conley,
that was my life right then. Back on my own.
33 years old. I think I was 38 when I left the business. Yeah, but 33, Jesus Christ, Eric, I mean, you're already a seasoned veteran. You could do it all. Work, heal, baby, draw money, get over. I know you're over the business now like I am, but do you realize that, do you think about the money left on the table, or you were just ready to get out because the business was changing?
Well, I'd talked to Pat Patterson, and I'd never really exposed this, but I talked to Pat Patterson about coming in to New York and knew on more of a booking end. And back in the day when I was booking San Antonio and with Joe Blanchard, we had USA Cable. Joe Blanchard was the first wrestling show to go nationwide on USA or any network. It would just happen to be USA. Okay? Vince, back when he started his move after Senior died, Vince wanted USA. And he had called Joe Blanchard and offered him a deal. And Joe was trying to figure out whether to take the deal or not. And quite frankly, we were building quite a debt to USA. We were actually doing mail order and so forth to help pay for the USA bill for playing the show. Well, Eric Embry was the one that got to call Pat Patterson and Vince McMahon and tell them, no, we will not take your deal. So what that did, it screwed me with them politically, and it just prolonged the time it would take Vince to get USA. After we got over, I'm pretty sure it was like over $250,000 in debt to USA, Vince paid the back bill and got the TV spot. That's how Vince McMahon got USA Cable back in the day.
I'll be damned.
So when it come time for me to go, it was time in my mind because I was living in the fast lane. I got divorced. Here are the deciding factors in me leaving the wrestling business. I got divorced. I got remarried, and we had a daughter. While I was married, I had a boy, little Eric, and I missed my boy growing up. Daddy was never home. I would fly out on Christmas Day because Christmas night was the biggest night of the year for a show. So I would fly out on Christmas Day and have to be at a show somewhere. And I missed my boy growing up. Well, there's there's just less than a handful of places to go make a living. Puerto Rico, Japan, that's a long way from home. I got remarried and had a little girl, and I thought, it's God says it's time. Daddy's going to be home for this one. And I don't regret it, Steve. I've got three beautiful girls now with this wife and little Eric. I've got a new granddaughter here in Kentucky that I get to see all the time. With little Eric, I've got three grandkids in Florida, three step-grandkids in Florida that I don't get to see as much as I'd like to. But life has been pretty good. And I'm still here. I haven't joined all my buddies in the wrestling ring in the sky yet.
Man, I know. And there's probably a time or two that you could have. And then with the quadruple bypass you mentioned, how are you feeling right now? Because how old are you? 56? 58?
57, going on 83.
With the quadruple bypass, the bumps in the ring, the car wreck, how do you feel on a day-to-day basis? If on a pain scale, 1 is no pain, 10 is a lot of pain.
I tell one of my doctors that I go to monthly on my neck, I've got no cushion between some of the vertebrae and so forth. I usually stay around a 6 or 7. And actually, I haven't. My wife is the only person that knows this, and this podcast will probably play after the fact, so everybody will know within the family. But I have some more blockage that I'm going to do a heart cath first part of January, and we'll see where I'm at. You know, I don't know. Might be something that can treat with stents or medicine, and might be something that they have to go in and fix again. Hope it's not that one, though.
We talked a lot, but we didn't get a chance to talk enough about Puerto Rico. Do you think we could talk about Puerto Rico in the back part of January and come back on the show? Because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't covered, but we got about
I'd love to.
We've got almost 90 minutes in. And I want to be able to do more research.
Wow.
I just like shooting the breeze about the business of pro wrestling, and I did my research, but it's just like the conversation flows, just like it does every time we pick up the phone, which is, we don't call each other every week or every month, but it's just been fun, and it's just I was a fan of your work, and you always treated me good, and watching your matches. And that's going to be my match of the week. Oh, one other match I wanted to ask you about. If we come back and we'll talk about Puerto Rico in maybe 2 to 4, 5, 6 weeks. You were on the Super Clash card where you took the light heavyweight title from Jeff Jarrett. Now, that was about a 5-minute match, give or take, from start to finish. It was very intense, great lockups, chain wrestling. It was kind of tit for tat, a couple of those sequences. And then it was almost a crossbody attempt. Jarrett hits the ropes, falls out to the floor, injures his shoulder. You lock on the arm bar, and y'all have the rest of the match. Was the match originally scheduled to be that short?
No, somebody had went long, and our problem with that match, Steve, goes back to booking. I was a top babyface in Dallas. Jeff was a top babyface in Memphis, and that Super Clash show was available in both areas. So we had to cover not making me appear to be a heel in Dallas, not making Jeff appear to be a heel in Memphis, and I thought we did a great job of pulling it off. Jeff Jarrett is a superb talent, and but that was and that's where Brother Terry Von Erich cut his damn underarm on the way to the ring. His music's playing, gashed it with his blade by accident, and blood streaming out of it. And Vern Gagne said, God, Eric, think of something, do something. I can shut my eyes and still see that. Oh, my gosh. Yes, buddy. When you're on the inside of our business, it's a completely different world than being just one of the wrestlers, one of the boys. And you experienced that on your big push in New York, because you and Vince had to be tight to pull all those angles off that you all did so well.
It was fortunate that we just developed. As you know, the further in you get, or the hotter you get, the closer you become with the people in charge, because you're the guy helping pull the whole wagon. Yeah. So. Yeah, and me and Vince hit it off, and it was kind of like in your dealings with anybody that you ever dealt with. I mean, there's high times and there's low times and there's good times, and then all of a sudden, hey, man, I don't agree with this, and sometimes things heat up. I mean, because, in the wrestling business, you need to be a businessman. You need to have a level head, but you're talking about a bunch of alpha males jockeying for position, as you mentioned, being the booker, trying to manipulate pieces of, you're playing chess rooks, with all the different guys. And all the different guys, you have some pawns, you have some rooks, you have kings. So you're moving everybody around on the board. So I had a great time working with Vince. But just in closing, the last thing I wanted to mention about that 5-minute match at the Super Clash, it was a 5-minute match for a title. Someone went long on time, but I'm going to recommend people watch that match as my match of the week because 5 minutes, you didn't do anything crazy. And just like you said, when I was a heel working in USWA after I left Dallas, I had great matches with Jeff Jarrett as a babyface. He was a great babyface, good-looking guy, lots of fire, could do anything you wanted. But y'all had a bust-ass 5-minute match. You took the belt back, and you didn't do anything crazy. And you always had this thing, Eric, where you'd kind of look over your shoulder at the crowd or some person in the audience, and you always paced yourself. And I'm talking about as you were an established hand in the ring, you never rushed anything. And so this is an intense match, but nothing is rushed. It's two pros out there telling a hell of a damn story, and you only got 5 minutes to do it. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because so many people get their television time cut, and they try to put 10 minutes of stuff into 5 minutes of TV time, and nobody gets over because there's too much to digest. Y'all went tit for tat, got the heat on Jeff, boom, go home. It was a great match.
The secret there is we told the story. We told a story. And like you're talking, they get lost, and bing, bang, boom, it's over. Well, what the shit did they do? There was no story. There's no story anymore.
I was doing an interview with a guy the other day, and he was asking, I think the interview is going to air sometime in January, and he was talking about stories and wrestling, and everything is a story, or it should be a story, from each match on the card to the overall theme of the show. It's all about stories, and to me, it seems like the guys who are almost as good at telling stories backstage are the guys that can tell them in the ring. And if you can get a crowd to believe what you're doing, heel or baby, and tell those stories, people will buy in. And I don't care if it's 2016 or it's 2017, or we go back to 92, or back to I like the stuff from the mid 80s. Mid-South, Power Pro, NWA, all that stuff, that era. But it's all about telling stories, and it's all about being real. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but that's the end of my podcast.
Yeah. Brother, I appreciate you, man. I really did. I've enjoyed it.
Hey, Eric, when you get done, would you shoot me a text after your checkup, and let's talk again. Let's shoot the breeze about Puerto Rico, because, man, I'm so intrigued by Puerto Rico. I heard about the Brody thing like everybody did, and I never went to Puerto Rico. And I'd like to talk just a little bit more about the color red.
I was a genius at that, and I was a genius at the color. Red makes green, and I have a different version of Puerto Rico than what's out there, because I sat in the office with Jose Gonzalez all day long, every day almost, and was booking him against Brody and this and that, and would say, Frank, please don't beat the shit out of him tonight. Please don't. So, there's two sides to that story. I'm not condoning what happened by all means, but there's two sides to that story.
Would you come back and tell the other side of the story?
Hell yeah. I wasn't there when it happened, but this wasn't something that happened overnight,
I'll shut it down right now. Hey, Eric, it was good talking to you.
Good talking to you, Steve. Thank you very much, buddy.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. So I'm going to wrap up his podcast and ride off into the sunset. Hey, I want to thank my guest today, Eric Embry, for giving me an hour and a half of his time. Old school guy. I look forward to talking to you again in a couple of weeks about Puerto Rico, blade jobs, and all the other stuff. Don't get a chance to talk to too many guys from the territory system anymore, and Eric Embry is full of great stories. Also, this is the last Unleashed show of 2016. God damn. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for downloading all the shows. I appreciate you letting me come over there and listen to my stuff as I talk to these guests, talk to Ted Fowler. We're going to have a lot more wrestling stuff when I get back to Los Angeles here in a couple of weeks, and it was great to talk squared circle business with a guy who has a great mind for the business in Eric Embry. Videos of the day, I got some Eric Embry matches. Eric Embry versus Tom Pritchard, USWA television taping. That time code's about 10 minutes and 43 seconds long. It's just a good, solid match between two established veterans. Tom Pritchard, Dr. Tom Pritchard, a guy who dropped a lot of information on me as we rode to the towns in the Tennessee territory. Eric Embry, a damn good worker, just a hell of a hand in the business. Watch that match. And then check out a match from the Super Clash, AWA, Jeff Jarrett versus Eric Embry for the world-class light heavyweight belt. Here's the match that got their time cut because someone went too long. The match is only about 5-6 minutes long. Eric Embry takes the belt from Jeff Jarrett, or retains it, I can't remember. Anyway, it's just a hell of a 5-minute match. They're not trying to put 10 minutes of shit into 5 minutes. Watch how much everything makes sense. Watch the intense lockups. Watch the wrestling, the tit for tat. Watch the great bump Jarrett takes out through the ropes onto the floor, hurts his shoulder. Eric starts working the arm. Then they go home. It's a 5-minute match that shows you in 5 minutes that you can have a great match, get people invested and interested, and not do too much shit. And you both get over, and people feel like they've watched an athletic endeavor. Damn, it's a good match, and it's short. Check out Eric Embry versus Danny Davis, 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Danny Davis, another veteran down there in USWA, who dropped so much knowledge on me way back in the day. Again, working with Eric Embry. Watch his heel mannerisms in this match. Watch just the low kicks. Watch his mean streak, the eye poke. Man, the dude's just a badass hand in the ring. So those are a couple of the matches that I got for you to watch. And, Eric Embry wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but he knew how to work. He knew how to get you to hate him, and he knew how to get you to like him. And he was a real smart guy. So check those matches out. Other than that, the only plug I'm going to give on the back end of this show, Broken Skull Challenge, every Sunday, CMT, 10, 9 Central. And right now, I want to thank you once again for listening to the podcast. And I damn sure got to thank y'all for supporting the sponsors of the Steve Austin Podcast, because they're the ones that let me do this for you free twice a week. So big thanks to Simply Safe. Go to simplysafeaustin.com to get $200 off Simply Safe's special holiday security system. To Helix. Go to helixsleep.com/podcast to get $50 off your first mattress order. To NatureBox. Go to naturebox.com/podcast for 50% off your first order. To MeUndies. Go to MeUndies.com/Steve Austin to get 20% off your first purchase. To Onnit. Go to Onnit.com/Steve to save 12% off emulsified MCT oil. To Boll & Branch. Go to BollandBranch.com and use the promo code Steve to get $50 off your first set of sheets. And, of course, to Amazon, who have been supporting the podcast since day one. And Amazon is the best place to buy the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife, just $75. And if you order the Broken Skull Cold Steel knife through my Amazon links, Amazon will kick back a couple of bucks to the podcast. Doesn't cost you anything extra, no hidden fees, no charges. You can buy whatever you're planning on buying, and you will help out the podcast in the process. And you can find my Amazon links by going to podcast1.com, clicking on the Killer Deals button in the top right corner of the page, and then hitting the Steve Austin Show button. I got Amazon links for USA, UK, and Canada. Bookmark it, find it in one step. Hey, man, last show of 2016. Happy New Year's to everyone. Be safe, and I'll see you in 2017. Keep listening. 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of Steve Austin Unleashed every Thursday at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One right after this.
The Angry President. I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. We've learned that President Trump was seething when he fired FBI Director James Comey. He felt Comey let the FBI's Russia investigation play out in the press, we're told. Former Trump campaign advisor Roger Stone tells the Today Show this morning the Trump presidential campaign did not collude with Moscow.
The idea of Russian collusion is a canard. It's a falsehood.
Earlier on the Today Show, White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked about a line in the president's termination letter to Comey that read, "I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation." Some have called that statement into question. Sanders was asked about it.
Look, I'm not sure on the reasoning behind that exact part being in there, but I do know I spoke to the president directly, and he said that those moments and conversations did take place.
I'm Rita Foley.